everybody. Happy 4th of July. Today is Monday, the actual observed day of the holiday, but I know a lot of people celebrate it over the weekend and such. Hope everybody's been safe, having fun, having a good time. And welcome to the corner. We left off last time. I was prepping this thing, getting ready for some hinges. Since then, I've gotten both sets of hinges for the trunk and the hood cut, bent, and ready to go. Today we're going to try to get them put on, get them tucked in and put in place. In the past, I've always made the hinge kind of a one-piece deal with just a single tube going across the middle. But a couple of years ago, I started making them individually like this to kind of hide the tubing, because when you open up the hood, you can still sometimes see that tubing underneath the cowl area. So I tried making them in a multi-piece unit like this. That way you can kind of tuck this piece of plastic and the tubing and hide it up underneath the fender out of view. So we're going to see how well this idea works on a Shelby. It's worked on a couple of cars that I've done in the past, and hopefully it'll do the same thing here. A lot of times what I tried doing is I tried to glue the hinges themselves straight to the panel that's going to be opening. In this case, it'll be the hood and the trunk lid. And then I try to worm it down inside the car, bring it back up, and then put the plastic tubing on each outside end and then glue it in place. Now it's kind of tricky to do because a lot of times I leave the jams in, the jams to kind of hold the hood while the back's being set in place. Later on, these 4 little tabs will come out. There, you can see them there. Later on, these will come out just to clean up the engine compartment area. I already took the one off the back because I won't be needing it. Once the hinges are holding the back of the hood in place, it'll hold it without dropping through. And then the grill work up front, this will help hold the hood on the front edge to keep it from dropping. So what we're going to do now is kind of get ready to start gluing the hood together, or the hinges onto the hood, I should say. And I need to get a piece of something flat. Hold on one second. I always start out with something flat because what is going to happen is this is how the hood's going to be glued together. I don't know how well you can see that. The outer edges of the hinge will have to come up and square it up. We'll get into that here in a second. One thing I kind of want to point out, that if you have a hood that has more of a V shape, where the hood's like this, where it rakes out a little bit more. I don't have anything handy right now. Maybe this will work. Something like this, where the hood is a little bit more splayed out and it's not quite square. If you come off the front, that would be kind of square to the hood. But you got this little extra that kicks out. Now on a hood like that, when you put the hinge on, you don't want to go square with the outside edge, because that's going to cause your hinge to want to sit at an off angle. It's going to want it to sit like that. You want the hinges to be straight in line with what the rest of the body would be. Hope you understand that. You want it straight in line, like a 90-degree angle off this back edge of the hood. A lot of times you got to watch that, because the hood, sometimes has a curve to meet the cowl, much like this does. With something like that, you just you can come off of it with a square if you had one, and scribe a couple lines down. A lot of times I just eyeball it. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue that close as I can to the outer edge, which is going to be right about there. And make sure it's, square with the You're going to want to make sure it's square this way too. That way you don't cause a lot of bind underneath the cowl when you go to put it underneath. This is kind of how you want it to look. Like I said, that bar on that hinge is coming pretty much straight in line off the edge of the hood. If it's not perfect, it doesn't have to. It won't be too much of an issue because there's enough play in that plastic tubing to allow it to pivot, whatever. All I'm doing is putting a little bead of, after knocking everything over, just putting a little bead of super glue on here. Some people may have a little different way of going about doing this. This is just kind of how I do it. And you lay this on here to where this curve is at the back of the hood. Spritz it. Then just make sure you're parallel with one another with the other side. Now these are going to get trimmed off. They're not going to stay that long. I just left them long during the bending process just to make sure I had enough. But that's the hood. I mean, the hood with the hinges in place. And at this point, knowing that these are going to be shortened up, you can come in and shorten them up. Because when you go to put this up underneath the body, the longer the hinge, the more it's going to get in your way. You want to kind of cut these so that they're really not too much longer than your piece of plastic. You can cut them shorter to where the plastic is, the brass or aluminum paper clip, whatever you use, is all inside the tubing. One of the watchers, one of the viewers, said that he uses aluminum paper clips and they would work. I've never known that they made aluminum paper clips, so that's kind of a new one to me. So now what you're going to do here is you're going to take the hood, bring it down inside the body, keeping it on top of your jambs. And I think we got something hanging up here. Oh, I see, right where the hinges are meeting the body. This stuff is a lot of trial and error when it gets to get into this stuff, I guess. At this point, I'm just going to center up the hood. Come in and mark the body a little bit. Pull the hood back out. What it's doing is the hinge, the back leg of this hinge right here, is hitting on the inside of this cowl and it's not allowing the hood to settle in. Kind of an easy way to fix that. If you wanted, you can use your Dremel. Come in and niche it with your drill, you got your grinding bit. All you want to do is just take a little bit of that plastic out away from this edge of the cowl, just to get a little relief for that hinge to come into play. Careful so you don't cut up too far, because you don't want to cut through the top of your cowl. You can always watch and make sure, watch that edge and make sure you're not getting too thin, which we're getting close now, but take a little bit more off. Luckily, the underside of the body like this won't be visible, so you can kind of hide some of this stuff a little bit. Remember too, when you do this stuff, to always support underneath your work. I got my finger kind of underneath that area just to support it. That way you don't flex the car too much, and like on this where you got multi-body pieces in it. That way you don't put too much stress on the body and blow it all apart. With all this being the flares, the skirt down the side, the door insert, and the flare back here are all added to the body. If you squeeze hard enough, you do run a risk of blowing it apart. So you always got to keep that in mind when you're working on multi-piece bodies like this. Always support it and make sure you don't put too much stress on it. Yeah, something's still not happy on the driver's side here. I know what it was. Our hinge, piece of brass rod that we got right here, is hitting this jam right here. So, how do we fix that? We get rid of it. Being careful by doing it. I'll clean this up here in a little bit. Maybe do that off camera, but yeah, can't get a good angle on it. There we go. I was trying to get in there and cut that up from the front. I was starting to push on the nose. I didn't want to push too much on the nose. All right, I'm going to take and just hit these a little bit and clean them up a little bit. Okay. Now with them cleaned up, thinned out, test fit the hood. Now what's going to happen here is when you do this, the back edge of the hood is going to drop down inside the body. It's going to want to fall through because there's nothing there to support it. It's going to want to drop down and do that. So there's nothing there to support it. So what you can do there in a case like this, make sure your hood fits flush all the way around. And you can always just take a piece of masking tape, lay it across the back edge of the cowl. Which what I'm going to do is that. Being that I got a hood scoop on here, I'm going to have to go at an angle though. And this will kind of hold things in place while you're working on the bottom side. One thing you want to do too is if you're at this point, you're going to want to check your height here. Check your height here. Make sure that plastic tubing is not going to be too far away from the body. Easy way to do it is just slip the plastic in place. You can see there how we are a little bit. I don't know how well you can see that. There is a little bit of a gap right in between here in the body. So the best way to do that is either rebend the hinges, which at this point they're already on the hood, or you can shim them up with a little bit of plastic underneath them to take up the slop, or what do you want to call it. This is where it's always nice to have a nice kind of a stockpile of spare plastic around. You can always just grab something and, you know, grab whatever piece you need and get it ready or whatever. I don't know where I'm going with that. A lot of times I'll just take and get a little super glue out on the area like this. I just take a piece of Post-it note. And at this time you can take a toothpick, or in this case I'm going to use a Q-tip because I don't have any toothpicks down here with me. I'm just going to snip off the end and just use that to dab into this and then put the super glue in place. No, I'm not going to clean up my ears, even though my wife would probably tell you I need to. Huh? All I'm going to do is dab this into the super glue, bring it up, put it underneath the, against the plastic on the hinge, and then on the body just a little bit. Take that little piece of shim that we cut, slide it under. Once that dries up, I'll come back and add a little bit more super glue just to reinforce it. Right now all I'm doing is getting the super glue kind of set in place. So when this shim plastic comes in place, just got something to hold it in place. Kick it just a little bit. Might need a little bit more super glue here for the next part. I know everybody's that does this kind of has their own ways of doing stuff. You want to double check the top, make sure your top's not drooping down. You want to make sure it's staying in place. You can kind of tell right here by the flat that it's kind of all staying level. But you always want to double check your work before you really permanently set this in place. Makes a mess when you try to blow it apart to fix a mistake. Don't ask me how I know that, I just know. But we'll set this in, and like I say, all I'm doing is taking the Q-tip and adding a little bit of super glue to the front and back side of the shim that we put in there, whatever else. Just like that. Got super glue going every place now. Give it a little kick, set it in place. And with that, we should be able to pull the tape off. Yeah, it's a little droopy too. Yeah, I had to figure this out. Hood's probably going to bind up opening. Yeah. Okay, so as you can tell, we got everything blown apart here again. Can you tell what I did wrong? Anybody? Anybody? Yeah, I had the hinges glued too far back on the hood. Been a while since I've done hinges, I guess. So what we're going to do is we're going to move these to where this curve, the notch, what it was too far back on the hood. And it wasn't allowing it to clear the cowl. So what we're going to do is we're going to move that a little bit farther forward on the hood, give it a little bit more room to move. Sorry, pulling you off camera here. I think it's something like that, maybe. Get this somewhat in place where I want it. Right there, maybe. Now, 10 to 1, my thumb's glued to the hood. So I'd pull that apart. There you go. I guess the best way we can do it now is just test this and make sure the hinge is going to line up with where we want it. You can kind of hold it with your finger and make sure your hinge is going to flow. Maybe. There we go. So now we got a little bit of a drop on it. I think that'll work out a little bit better. Well, I guess it's official. I can probably tell you that if you see this video, you know it made it through. If you don't see a follow-up to the first round, I'll let you know that, it's going to be a lift-off hood, not a hinged hood. But we're going to try to make it work. I'd much rather have it hinged than a lift-off style. But with all the hiccups here in this video, I may have to make a third part to this video, which will be probably later in the week or next weekend or whenever I get the chance. Let's try this and see what we got. Now, through double checking my gaps, this one's gapped pretty good from the cowl, but this one right now is up against the cowl itself. All is not lost on this. What I can do is I can cut the tubing in half. Cut one of these in half to make like a piece of C-notch. And I can come down and just cap it over top of that hinge. Hold it in place and then put a piece of tubing on this side to draw it in. What I'm talking is just taking a piece of ply of the tubing, cutting the one side out of it and making it into a C. And we'll just cap this over top of that hinge. Okay, through a little work and a little rework. That's the hood with the hinges in place. I did use a little piece of C channel like I cut on this side. Glued this, and I need to glue the front end of these hinges in and make them a little bit more permanent. But that's how, with the hinges sitting where they should be, like we moved them forward, it gives me a little bit more room to be able to open up the hood. And that's where it'll be. Like I say, you can always kind of fiddle around with it. You're gonna have to play with it a little bit, kind of find what works best and how it works best for you. This is just to give you a basic idea of how I do them. Like I say, it's not how everybody does it. Everybody has their own way and style of doing it. Some may differ, from what I do, how I do it, which is fine. Everybody has their own way of doing stuff, and this is just to give you an idea of how to go about doing it, setting it up. And then you can just follow the same concept to the trunk. You can follow the same idea to a pair of opening doors. The same type hinges work on just about all that, hood, trunk, or doors. But that'll kind of give you an idea of which way to go and how to go. If you have any questions, give me a holler, let me know, and we'll take them from there. I'll work on the trunk load, some other time, get the deck load on this thing and get it put in place. And this thing's pretty close to paint. Still not sure. I'm leaning toward the black cherry. Still not 100% stuck on that yet. I'm kind of have an idea of going a really bright red, like what my Ferrari Mustang is. Going something along that line, along that, just something bright. Black cherry would look good too, but I don't want to get lost on a table if I decide to take it to an NNL or something. I don't know if I'll enter it in a competition, but at least it'll be a good car to take and put on a table just to show it. But that's about that one. Hope everyone has a happy and safe 4th. Hope you've had a good weekend, and if you haven't done so, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, leave a question down below and I'll try to answer it the best I can. With that in mind, we'll catch you the next time around. We'll see you on the corner. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.